Good morning and welcome back to the one that Celtic fans view this morning. It is that time of year where the sun's getting up that little bit in a different angle and it's coming right through this window and it's blinding me. Anyway, we move on with the video. We're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to talk about Scott Brown getting the job and what will that mean for any Celtic players going out on loan. We're going to talk about Rocco Vata, the situation with Rocco, and we're going to talk about something that's never really been spoken about, a change in strategy by Celtic. It's kind of been sneaked in over the last couple of years, and I think it's important that we talk about it because it shows that they have changed something at Celtic and they've changed the outlook, and they might be building for a sort of medium to longer term rather than the short term that generally has been over the last 10 to 15 years. Anyway, let's get to Rocco Vata first. Rocco Vata, Anthony Joseph, the Skyman, has said Celtic have begun contract talks with forward Rocco Vata. Has understood the club hierarchy have reopened talks with discussions with his reps, the CAA base, to discuss the possibility of extending his stay in Glasgow. It is believed he's keen on staying, and if the right pathway arises, maybe that's why Brendan Rodgers brought him into the first team. He does think. I mean, I don't think has there been? I can't remember a player from the B team getting such vast amount of paper space and just attention. And the fact that he's getting a new contract signed, well, he won't. I mean, I can understand why it's happening, especially since Celtic have lost quite a lot of young players recently for basically nothing, and they've walked out the door. I mean, the Ben Doak one was a hard one to take. The fact that he's walked right into the Liverpool team. Is it the fact that Rocco Vata, Brendan Rodgers, has taken him aside and says, look, I see you playing more as a striker rather than a winger? There has been some Celtic fans said, look, he's absolutely garbage on the wing. He's not better than anything that what we've got. But with O being away at the Asia Cup, Dyson Myra's away also. They're going to be away for the next 3 weeks. It'll be interesting to see if Rocco Vata does get a consistent run in the team. Now, he did score in his debut at the weekend. Was it his debut? But he scored at the weekend, and it was his first game for the first team this season. He took the goal pretty well. I thought his positioning was well. He stepped away from the defender, made a bit of space for himself. People are saying, look, it kind of the ball smashed off him. But you've got to be in that position for the ball to smash off you, whether he managed to get his foot in the right position to tap it in, or if the ball just came off him and went in. You've got to be in that position. You've got to make yourself available. So the fact that he did, it was quite a good run for me into the box. I was quite impressed with the positioning with it. The fact that when the goal went in, the first thing that Brendan Rodgers did was run to the Apple Mac laptop at the side of the pitch to watch the replay of the goal going in, to watch specifically his positioning and everything. And I think Brendan would have been impressed with that. The fact that Celtic have went back into talks with him, everyone thought he was going to be away, including myself. I thought it would be better for the player just to go. His attitude hadn't been the greatest, but Brendan Rodgers obviously sees something in him, and it's even came out that his dad wants him to stay. It came out on the chat last night, the live chat. If you don't watch the live chats, at 6:00 every night, Celtic part-time. There was a couple of guys said that, look, his mother said that he doesn't want to leave either. Maybe he doesn't want to stay at Celtic and he just wants a decent crack at the whip. Now, I've been an advocate on this channel for a long time saying, look, if the guys are good enough, get them in the first team. We're bringing in far too many 20, 21-year-olds into Celtic, and then they're not the standard. We don't need to be spending crazy amounts of money, 2 or 3 million. We should have a conveyor belt of our own players coming through, at least two every season. And if they don't make it into the first team, if they come into the first team then and they're not good enough, you then punt them on. You don't punt them on and put them out on loan. Anyway, has there ever been a B team player that got as much attention as the one and only Rocco Vata? Will he sign a new contract? And if he does, how long will that contract be? Because there's been a significant change at Celtic over the last couple of years. The fact that we brought in Nico Kuhn this transfer window on a 5.5-year deal is pretty significant, because there was a time gone by where Celtic players would probably get around about a 3-year deal maximum, or when it was coming to the end of their deal, they would get a year extension and things like that. It's very rare in modern day football that we get sort of 5-year deals, but Celtic have been dishing them out like sweeties over the last couple of years. Has that been a significant change by the PLC? Is it a change by the managers at the time, and is it a different way of looking at it? You remember that if you're going back a long time, if you're of a certain age, you remember that Dundee United at one time, they would put players on contracts like 10-year contracts. And that was, and I'm going to tell you why it was clever, because at the time Dundee United were having fantastic runs in Europe. Dundee United were beating the likes of Barcelona back in the 80s. So putting players on long-term contracts does two things. It makes sure that the squad is steady and stable, a bit like what it was on our run to the second 9 in a row, and it gives the players a bit of peace of mind, and it allows them to develop as players also. And then when it comes to selling the players, we do have a good few years grace where it's in Celtic's hands. We don't have to sell them straight away because they're going into the last year of their contract, and you can maximise the amount of money, the revenue that you then bring in for that player. So it's just an interesting one. I don't think many people have been speaking about the fact that Celtic have been putting all these players on long contracts. People have been complaining about it's harder to get rid of the players because they are on long contracts. Or maybe the thinking behind it is that if the players come in and they do half decent, the fact that they are on these extended contracts can only be good for Celtic, as will maximise the revenue. So tell me what you think about that in the comments section. Now, Scott Brown, yes, the Bruni has a new job. And the reason why I talk about Bruni is because when he was at his last club, Celtic gave him a couple of younger players out on loan. Now, it's significant that he came in just before the end of the transfer window, and Celtic are trying to get out some loan players. It'll be interesting to see if they put out any to Ayr United, where Scott has just taken over, specifically as they have an important game coming up. And it'll be good to see if anything happens with that. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Bruni says, first and foremost, we want to come in and get things moving in the right direction again. He says, we get our own ideas across. These things don't happen overnight, but we're ready to work hard. I want to work with Stephen. You've got to remember Stephen Whittaker is his best mate from their younger days at Hibs. They came through the system at Hibs together. And we started together when we were teenagers at Hibs, and the chemistry is there. Many people have a perception of me playing and our playing days, but I would like to offer something else as a manager. Yes, I'm a winner. I always have that mentality, but there are a bigger picture as well in management. That's where Stephen is great for me in this role. Brown lasted just a little over a year at Fleetwood Town. I've got to admit, he had a fantastic FA Cup run in that when he was at Fleetwood Town, but he was sacked after a poor start to the season. And Fleetwood Town have had a couple of managers since then, including Charlie Adams' sister's pants. Anyway, we all wish Bruni all the best, and we hope that he finally gets his managerial career. A lot of people are saying they bring him back to Celtic. I don't think that Scott, even he says it wouldn't be right for him to come back to Celtic. He's got an idea of how he wants his managerial career to pan out. He has been best mates with Stephen since they were kids, and sometimes that works in your favour. Got to remember, Brendan Rodgers had his own right hand man for a long time, and it worked well for him in his early days as a manager. So tell me what you think about Bruni getting that job. Tell me what you think about the Rocco Vata situation. Has there been a B team player or a youth team player that's had as much press and attention as Rocco Vata? I'll tell you one thing, Rocco Vata will need to turn up with the goods. And if he gets on the pitch, he'll need to start scoring goals if he gets that striker's role like he played last weekend. On that note, that's it for the Celtic news this morning. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope the sun is shining with you and it's not too wet and windy wherever you are. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.